The case of Little Quinton Simon, a 20-month-old boy from Savannah, Georgia, is a harrowing tale that gripped the nation and sparked intense discussions about child welfare, parental responsibility, and systemic failures. Quinton was reported missing on October 5, 2022, after his mother, Leilani Simon, claimed he had vanished from their home. The search for Quinton began with hope and community support, but quickly turned into a heartbreaking saga that would reveal deep-seated issues within the child welfare system and the tragic consequences of neglect. Quinton's early life was marked by instability. Leilani Simon, a young mother, had a history of tumultuous relationships and encounters with law enforcement. Reports indicated that she had experienced difficulties with parenting and had previously lost custody of another child. This history would later come under scrutiny as investigators sought to understand the circumstances surrounding Quinton's disappearance. Initially, the search for Quinton involved local law enforcement, community volunteers, and organizations dedicated to missing children. Candlelight vigils and community events brought people together, united in the hope of finding the young boy alive. The public's response showcased a collective empathy for the family. But as the days passed without any sign of Quinton, that hope began to wane. Investigators soon began to express concerns about Leilani's credibility and the potential for foul play. On October 18, 2022, after nearly 2 weeks of searching, authorities announced they believed Quinton was dead. This grim turn of events shifted the focus from rescue to recovery. Investigators began to gather evidence, revealing troubling details about Quinton's home life. Reports emerged about multiple calls to Child Protective Services regarding neglect and unsafe conditions in the home. The public began to question how a child could slip through the cracks of a system designed to protect him. Leilani was eventually named a suspect in her son's disappearance. The emotional weight of the case began to take its toll on the community. Grief turned to anger as people sought answers. Social media buzzed with discussions about Leilani's parenting choices and the systemic failures that allowed Quinton's tragic fate. As details emerged about Leilani's behavior in the days leading up to Quinton's disappearance, the public perception of her shifted dramatically. On November 18, 2022, after extensive investigations, authorities discovered Quinton's remains in a landfill, confirming the worst fears of the community. The confirmation was met with widespread sorrow and outrage. Many grappled with the reality of losing a child who had become a symbol of innocence and vulnerability. Leilani Simon was arrested and charged with malice murder, concealing a death, and making false statements to law enforcement. The legal proceedings that followed were intense and deeply emotional. The prosecution presented evidence of Leilani's neglect and her actions leading up to Quinton's death. They painted a picture of a mother who had failed to protect her child, while the defense argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that Leilani was not solely responsible for the tragic outcome. The courtroom drama drew national attention, with many closely following the trial and weighing in on the debate over parental responsibility and accountability. Throughout the trial, the community continued to mourn Quinton's loss. Memorials and tributes poured in, with many advocating for systemic changes to ensure that children in similar situations are protected. Local organizations and child welfare advocates began calling for reforms in how the system handles cases of neglect, urging for more comprehensive support for struggling families. The verdict, delivered in early 2024, ultimately found Leilani guilty on several charges, including malice murder. The outcome provided a sense of justice for some, but it could not erase the pain of Quinton's loss. The case raised critical questions about the effectiveness of child protective services and the responsibilities of communities in safeguarding children. It also highlighted the need for greater resources for parents facing challenges, whether due to mental health issues, addiction, or socioeconomic factors. In reflecting on the tragic story of Little Quinton Simon, there are important lessons to be drawn. First and foremost, the case emphasizes the urgent need for vigilance in child welfare. Communities must be proactive in identifying at-risk families and providing support before tragedies occur. It also underscores the importance of comprehensive mental health services and parenting resources, ensuring that families have the tools they need to thrive. Additionally, the case serves as a reminder of the critical role that public awareness and advocacy play in addressing systemic issues. Communities must come together to advocate for children, ensuring that their voices are heard and that they are protected from harm. This includes holding systems accountable for their failures and pushing for reforms that prioritize the safety and well-being of children. Ultimately, the death of Little Quinton Simon is a heartbreaking reminder of the fragility of life and the responsibility we all share in protecting the most vulnerable among us. As the community continues to heal, it is essential to honor Quinton's memory by striving for a world where no child suffers the same fate. This case should inspire a renewed commitment to child welfare, a call to action for systemic change, and a reminder that every child deserves a safe and loving home. The story of Quinton Simon will remain etched in the hearts of those who followed it, serving as a catalyst for change and a reminder of the collective responsibility we have to safeguard the lives of our children.